What is that like? That worlds you were designing kind of in a 3D gaming space are now coming to life in a 2D world. It's an advisory role that someone with 35 years of experience can not only help adapt a current business to the AI tools that are best suited for what they do, what's happening in their marketplace. More importantly, it's like what's 2 years out, what's 5 years out for that business.
We can get a lot more productivity, a lot more value for businesses much sooner out of their AI adoption.
Well, hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Oh, I'm really good. It's so nice to be talking with you today about Automately. And I just really appreciate your making the time available. So much is going on in the AI world, and the fact that I get to talk to a true OG is really making my day. I have so many questions too. I know the viewers have a lot of questions, and to find someone so deep in the development of this whole new world that we're all stepping into, really wonderful to be able to talk with you about that. But before we start, I want to mention to people that you were kind of a prodigy. You built your first game at age 10 before anybody, really understood the world of gaming. You built your first company around gaming at 13, and you showed up in college with 23 employees already in your company. So we hear the stories of, dorm room millionaires, but you showed up with a company of 23 on your first day of college. So you are ahead of the curve, sir. That continues today. So it's really nice to meet you and be able to talk to you about this. You're in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona.
I am, and it's also a pleasure to chat with you today. And thank you for all those kind words.
Oh, no, that's okay. Here in Austin, we have a little bit of a tech boom. We have this guy named Elon who's moved here. And so, yeah, we have a little tech buzz going on here in Austin, a little space activity, all kinds of stuff going on. But it's an exciting new world that we're all going to get ready to embrace. And I'll share with people that when you actually left college and joined the working world, you were CTO with Electronic Art, and there is nobody in gaming who can't now see that EA logo in their mind's eye.
Exactly.
It's like, say, can you see what the Coke logo looks like? Yes. Do you see Nike? Yes. Do you see EA? Yes. It's just like tattooed for some people right there. You were CTO of NextPlay, and then a long succession of founding great startup. For the last 18 months, you have been focusing on a startup called Automately. And, when I talked with you a little bit before we started recording, I could see your enthusiasm like you're in a sandbox around AI. It's so fun for you. You've been kind of working in virtual worlds since your gaming days because that is that world. For the rest of it feels so new, but it's not new for you or the people that you work with. You've known it very well. So to see it roll out to the rest of the world, what is that like? That worlds you were designing kind of in a 3D gaming space are now coming to life in a 2D world?
Yeah, it's my biggest fun in technology, and why I keep going back and building new companies over and over again is to see these transitions of technology and the adoption of these technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from email to digital faxes, desktop publishing, internet. I kind of lived through all these big transitions, and AI is obviously going to be a huge one as well. And I can't be on the sidelines. I love playing with it, and I love being part of the evolution of understanding how people work with these technologies and how they get adopted, and kind of how they make lives better for people.
One of the things I've enjoyed in my discussions with you so far is the way that you're embracing what this can do for people. There's been a lot of sort of fear factoring and a lot of hysteria around Skynet's coming to life and the Terminator is going to be coming for us. The lack of understanding about how AI can actually support our world. And you shared the thought of, imagine someone in tech support and they get 1,000 calls a month saying, I need to reset my password. That maybe isn't what makes that tech support person super happy that for the 1,001st time, they're helping someone figure out how to reset a password. That really deserves automation. That kind of routine reset And, people swipe their card in a kiosk in order to get their boarding pass so they don't have to wait in line. We're seeing the way technology tools make life easier, make life faster. And now that tech support person can have an interesting conversation about why somebody's server has slowed down. And maybe they need to do software upgrades, or maybe they need more capacity in their server. Maybe they need to schedule routine things in the early morning hours, not during the day. Solve interesting problems. So that's a more fun human job. And we'll let kind of the robot vacuuming and the password reset stuff happen automatically. So yeah, you have a human-centric point of view about how AI tools will change the nature of our work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that throughout history, we have always tended towards accelerants. We could be digging dirt with our hands, but instead we use shovels. And for me, AI is another accelerator. And I know that there are people who view it with, somewhere between fear and malice, but I actually think that it is a great opportunity to empower folks in the same way that we went from, taking days to research something at the encyclopedia or in the library to, asking Google, how many times more effective and efficient can we be at pursuing our creativity and pursuing our ideas when we have access to this kind of information. And while it is going to transform what we teach people in school, I don't think that it's going to eliminate the need for people or the want for people, because ultimately, businesses, society is people. It's not, robots serving robots. Um, and I always liken it to going to the gym, right? Yes, I could put a forklift in the gym and lift 500 pounds, but I go to the gym to do curls, not to get lifts, weights lifted, right? So I don't think AI is replacing people so much as, when it's deployed correctly, it is helping people learn faster, work faster, do more, enjoy more.
So interesting. Well, it is a more human workplace when you don't have boring, repetitive tasks. And, if you're going to look for a complaint in HR, it might be, do I really need to be painting the lines in the parking garage? And I mean, couldn't there be another way to get this task completed? So when we talked about how you work with your channel partners, how you work with clients that you bring on board, it's an advisory role that someone with 35 years of experience can not only help adapt a current business to the AI tools that are best suited for what they do, what's happening in their marketplace. More importantly, it's like, what's 2 years out, what's 5 years out for that business, because this train has left the station and it's picking up speed. And you really help them position their business well because you have that foresight.
Yeah, we really do focus on treating AIs analogous to bringing on a new employee to your business. So when you bring on a new employee, first you give them the documentation, right, the manuals, whatever it is, and that captures some of what they need to know. But a lot of the knowledge they really need to know to perform their job is probably around the water cooler, right? So you bring them on. For a while, they'll shadow an experienced employee. Then maybe you'll start giving them little tasks with close supervision. And then over time, you give them bigger and bigger tasks with less and less supervision until eventually they're fully qualified to do the job. We very much believe in the same kind of approach to the deployment of AI, where we have a methodology that identifies those kind of low risk, low value, high labor tasks, and helps identify the process of how do we convey the information about the task, and how do we measure success for those tasks? Because often that is quite hard to get your finger on for some of those low level tasks. I joke with people about what is your equivalent of washing the floors and scrubbing the toilets? The stuff that nobody wants to do, but needs to be done in
Can
order
you
to.
put unloading the dishwasher on that list? I don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely. In kind of understanding what those tasks are and understanding how you measure success in those tasks allows us, once we deploy AIs, to also measure the efficacy, or what we call the confidence score for the AI. and then improve that over time. And that lets you give the AI autonomy that is commensurate with the level of confidence that you have. And for different tasks, you may need different levels of confidence.
Hmm.
But trying to boil the ocean and make a perfect AI is very hard and time consuming and expensive, and
Hmm.
leads to a lot of failed pilots, right?
Yes.
Whereas if we can understand that we can get a lot of value out of getting 50% of the job done or 90% of the job done,
Hmm.
understanding and creating workflows that build the checks and balances into it the same way as you would around a new employee, we
Hmm.
can get a lot more productivity, a lot more value for businesses much sooner out of their AI adoption.
Hmm.
And it also allows us to introduce AI into the workplace sort of slowly and gradually. So it gives the employees an opportunity to kind of get used to it, understand how it works in the sense that you see the product as it's getting better, as it's improving, and you're part of the process as opposed to, meet Frank the robot, right?
Hmm. Well, no, I love Autumn, who you introduced people to on the Automately website. And we had talked before about how there is a massive adoption of some things. It used to be you would never punch your credit card into a website. That was a crazy idea. And
Oh
today
yeah.
we swipe our cards all the time. And in fact, we just tap our phone on the coffee servers thing, and it's like, okay, boom, they let you have your coffee. So we do adapt ourselves to these changes. um, I helped a business client not long ago take the training from sort of old school Excel spreadsheets, which is how they've done it for 20 years, to some software. And there was a lot of resistance about, oh, we have to find new ways to train people. Now they would never go back. I tease them now. How are those Excel spreadsheets? They're like, oh, yeah, why were we doing that for so long? They realize life is better when things are simple and they're efficient and more effective. And I don't have to do the data entry into a crazy Excel spreadsheet. So, I think as people look back, it'll be like, well, it's okay to just swipe my phone or tap my card or whatever to have a payment system. And I'm not writing checks at the grocery store because I don't know if the grocery store accepts checks anymore. So, the world has moved on and AI is going to do that too. The different market sectors that you work in, you sort of bring the AI side of the equation and they bring what their challenges are in the workplace, operational challenges or data challenge, and you show how that marriage happens. That's your advisory role.
Yes. So our real go-to-market strategy isn't so much to serve a particular customer, although of course we're happy to do so.
Hmm.
Ideally, what we'd love to do is to find a customer in a particular industry or vertical or that has a use case that reflects the needs of other people in their ecosystem or in their market, and
Hmm.
who are entrepreneurial enough to then partner with us to sell it to those other people in their ecosystem. So once we've solved the problem for them, we then can joint venture or rev share or whatever with them to bring that solution to folks in their space.
Hmm.
We are experts in AI, but we are not experts in the many
Sure.
different
The whole
verticals and
world of
markets.
business.
Exactly, right? And
Hmm.
so we ideally love to partner with folks who really understand a given segment,
Hmm.
and then work with those to understand where the value is and what thoughtful, safe, productive automation looks like in that space. I'll give you an example. We
Hmm.
work with one channel partner who is in the legal space,
Hmm.
but not, that's also a very large sector that you can't get your hands around. But he very specifically works with lawyers who are the corporate counsel in kind of small to medium sized companies. So they're the only lawyer in the building. They don't have clerks. They don't have necessarily assistants.
Hmm.
And so they're kind of lonely from a law perspective. They have no one professionally to kind of bounce ideas off of, and they have very little supporting infrastructure
Hmm.
that is law specific and law trained.
Hmm.
And so with that partner, we're identifying specific needs that are very time consuming tasks
Hmm.
that would have to be shipped out or shipped overseas, or whatever needs to be done, that we can now solve right in the office, right while they're working kind of alongside this AI
Hmm.
assistant. Um, who like Autumn then can integrate with their workflow, integrate with their tools, respond to the emails, take the phone calls, whatever makes sense in that particular use case.
It is very interesting, all the changes that are coming. And you've said there are some clients you meet with, and it's clearly there's a targeted use. Like these very specific operations, that's a no-brainer. This is where we start. This is what needs to happen. But in other cases, it's a full AI rollout across the frontier of what they're doing, the whole dashboard of what they're doing. But you have the expertise to say, Mr. Business Owner, Ms. Business Owner, this is where you should start. And this is what it'll do for you. In a new space that's kind of so sexy and so new and everybody's talking about it, I always worry about the people that overpromise and underdeliver. AI is going to, paint your house, and then it's going to feed your dog, and then it's going to, do all these really wonderful things. And it's not going to do all that, or it's not going to do all that tomorrow. It might do all that with the Jetsons in 10 years, but you bring a real world understanding, 35 years of experience of it can do this and it can't do that yet, but it will do this in 18 months or 2 years, and it's worth looking at. So people get a real answer from you when they talk about something that's so new.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are still a lot of people, including people who are in the tech world, who are
Mm-hmm.
running around trying to sell, tools and solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And while that made sense, in the SaaS world and in the world, a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I think now it's a very different need that we have moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really more about the relationships, and it's really more about understanding the processes. We're kind of getting to a, what I call a post-code world. The code generation is so inexpensive and so rapid now
Mm-hmm.
that the code is no longer the thing that makes the difference. The thing that makes the
It used
difference
to be
is
currency.
how.
It
I
used
know, yeah, absolutely.
it really.
And now it's not anymore. Now actually code is almost a commodity, except at the very extreme edges, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but understanding what the needs are, and understanding what the technical, the social, the business, the compliance needs are of these organizations, and helping them make the transition with the realization that it's not a point, it's a process,
Mm-hmm.
and helping people kind of understand that. People are very used to thinking of technology as something you switch on and off,
Mm-hmm.
but AI is fundamentally a statistical process. There will always be some rate of failure. There will always be some rate of success, and you need to have the systems in place and the processes in place to recognize that, to get the true value out of it. But at the same time, that value is tremendous.
Well, I think it's so important to realize that this is emerging because business is changing with it. Our two worlds, our 2D and our 3D world are coming together, and to find a person with such insight, they can see this is next, this is next, this is next. This is a good place to invest your capital for and bang for the buck right now, this operational piece or this other piece. And then your next step would be this, and that's where capital should be deployed in order to have you be more competitive or more efficient. I know from that one client who's like, why didn't we automate this sooner? You know, why did we take so long to say goodbye to the Excel spreadsheets? Because they knew it and it was comfortable and it's how they'd done it for years. So a lot of people are going to go through that discomfort of being outside the box with AI. But I don't think it'll be very long before they say, why didn't we do this sooner?
No, absolutely. And the perspective that often helps people think about this is, you have somebody on your team that you go to for a certain kind of, thing, sales presentations,
Mm-hmm.
right? How often do you have to wait for that person because they've got five other sales presentations ahead of you? What if they could actually get all five of those done in a timely manner so
Yeah.
that nobody had to wait, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the solution that we're talking about. And it's not because we've replaced them with mumbo jumbo coming out of an AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we've made it possible for them to work so much more quickly and effectively
Mm-hmm.
that they can now keep up with greater demand and solve all of those issues and create all of those things that you backburnered for years because you
Yes.
never had the cycles to deal with them.
Yeah, you didn't have the time. And, people I think forget that humans are involved in the design of this. That if you sit down with someone and say, here's your list of 10 things to do, which five do you want to get rid of? They'll tell you.
Absolutely.
These are the ones. Leave me with this so I can finally do this thing we've been talking about for 2 years. And you're like, great, let me cross these off your list. You'll design a way for them to do it. We'll give this task to Autumn.
Right. Or, Autumn will help you do this task in 10 minutes instead of 10 hours, right?
Yeah, so I think there's a net benefit. It's early days and we'll be feeling it soon, but then things are going to go even faster, Mark. Already it's going so fast. But when you think that project that we haven't touched in 2 years, we could get done in 6 months, where are we going to be 2 years from now? 5 years ahead of what we were thinking just last month or just last quarter. Things are only going to go faster.
And I think it's also going to enable um, different kinds of working that are hard for us to imagine today. So, for
Mhm,
example, imagine a world where ideas in products can be produced so quickly and cheaply that you can actually produce them and compete them rather than having to make ahead of time a decision about which of these five paths are the right path because the investment in testing them is too great,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Whether that's a whether that's a sales presentation or whether that's a piece of software, the ability to generate it so quickly that you can actually look at the final product and compare it and decide what best reflects the voice of your company rather than having to pick something based on a sketch or a design or a concept is very powerful. And I could even see it extending to business models where
Mhm,
now when you want to, get something done, you go to a consultant, you go to, you hire somebody to do a job. The
mhm,
job gets done 5 times and you pick, the one that you want and you buy that one.
mhm.
So, it's almost like pricing after the product as opposed to pricing ahead of the product. Because
It
again, the
inverts it.
increment,
It
yeah,
inverts it. Let me see these finished dresses. Okay, I'll take the blue one. Hmm.
exactly, exactly. Because the incremental cost of producing the red, yellow, and orange ones is so low that it actually allows you to make better, even more informed choices.
This is going to be a fun world to live in. And I'm thinking about tech support people who are going to say, thank you, Mark and Automately, because I haven't said, did you need to reset your password at all this month? Not even once. I have Mark to thank for that. So,
Yeah, it's it, it is a very interesting phenomena that if I go into a tech support environment and I say, okay, AI can do tech support, which notionally it can,
mm,
everybody feels threatened and everybody feels like it's coming after their job. If
mhm,
I say I'm going to create an AI that screens the calls and deals with I lost my password, but then
mhm,
passes the rest of the calls onto the agents. The agents welcome it. The company welcomes it because it gives the agents more time to do the things that actually generate value, that actually give opportunities for upsell and so
mhm,
on. So
mhm,
it just empowers folks up and down the chain. On compliance, we see this a lot. Often compliance processes are based on sampling. I will look at 3% of the messages. I will look at 5% of the videos.
mhm,
Imagine now that we can actually look at 100% of the content and check it for compliance and avoid the fines and avoid the customer complaints, right? So again, it's enabling us across the spectrum of capabilities
mhm,
when it's deployed in a way that recognizes its limitations and
mhm,
recognizes that it improves over time with the right kind of implementation,
mhm.
and that the processes and the adoptions have to reflect that reality and the needs of that organization.
As you mentioned compliance, this is my last thought for you. Then I'm going to ask you to paint a little bit of a future picture for us. But you look at some of the sunk costs of complying, state regulations, meeting, legal certifications, double checking how people are hired or how they're paid. If you could look at those balance sheets and say, I'm going to cut that in half, I'm going to cut that by three quarters, I'm going to cut that by one third, what are we using that freed up capital for? In new invention, growing the company, adding another factory. If you could just be taking a sledgehammer to some of those costs because these repetitive tools just bring those costs down. how exciting it would be to be leading a company with thin and trim and nimble because those costs have been controlled.
And more productive and more generative because
Hmm.
of the opportunities that were created, right?
Yes.
It's for me, it's not always about kind of reducing costs. For me, it's often about creating new capabilities. Software development is kind of the canary in the mine here a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and the leading edge of software development automation with AI right now has basically AI writing a multitude of versions of any piece of code and
Hmm.
then comparing them to see which one works best. And that is, I think, really reflective of the future of a lot of what we do with AI. And we're not there yet. The cost of that processing is still too expensive to
Hmm.
go completely crazy with it, but it will get there as the systems improve, as the energy cost improves,
Hmm.
reduces, as the latency reduces, as the hardware gets better. We
Hmm.
will get to where we can do that for most business processes.
So, do you think where we used to see fields of wheat and corn, we're going to see fields of servers? Like, how do we build out all the capacity for all of this AI and the energy it needs? The world is going to look a little different.
So it definitely requires infrastructure, but
Hmm.
there's also definitely a Moore's law of AI at work here,
Hmm.
where the same capability is going to be delivered with a lot less technology and a lot less energy,
Hmm.
and we're seeing those incremental improvements, just taking over rapidly.
Hmm.
So not that we won't be using energy, not that we won't be, consuming cycles to do this, but also we can't get stuck thinking about the metrics of today when we think about the capabilities of tomorrow. When we walked into a computer in the 1950s and it was, a
On an
gymnasium
elevated
size,
floor in an air conditioned
exactly, all of
room.
that stuff. And now, the capability of my telephone here
Hmm.
outstrips that by many, many, many orders of magnitude, right?
Hmm.
So we are in the very early days of AI. That
Hmm.
capacity and that capability is going to increase, and that doesn't mean we're going to be doing, infinitely more, but we will be doing a lot more with a lot less in terms of energy, right? So every now and again, we will go through transformations that really change the very kind of fiber of how we think about work.
Hmm.
And, if you really kind of think back, the creation of the phone and of motorized transport
Hmm.
was a huge transformation because suddenly we can get ideas to places faster than we could physically get to them ourselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there are a few transformations like that that come along that really change how we think about
Hmm.
work and how we think about how societies function. And I
Hmm.
think AI is clearly one of those. And I'm very excited to be a part of it. And I'm very excited to be a part of it in a way that shows, again, kind of a more human centric view than just let's replace the people with AIs, because I don't think that that's ultimately the answer, because it kind of misses the forest for the trees.
Hmm.
AIs serving AIs don't accomplish anything.
Well, robots can't deliver robots lunch, as you say.
Exactly.
There have to be
Exactly.
people there to eat the food. So we're still a part of the process one way or another. I'm excited about your optimistic view and the fact that there are people like you who have so many years of history that you can be a good judge of where to begin, what to plan for next. And it seems like generally you're saying get started somewhere. Look at what could you automate, and automately can help you get that off the ground and then
Yeah.
see where that leads you. And I think people will be saying, oh, could you do my department next? Could you, how do we get on the list to get rid of the stuff we don't like to do because it's repetitive and boring? So, yeah.
Well, go to our website, have a chat with Autumn, drop me your email, and we will definitely be in touch, and we'll be very happy to help.
Yeah, wonderful. I have a channel partner potentially to refer you to, and we'll send people in the show notes to your website so they can meet Autumn.
Wonderful.
It
Thank
was
you so
great to
much.
talk with you, Mark. Okay, have a good rest of your
Chat
day.
with you as well. Take care.